Hey guys, welcome back to Matt Drones On. We are here today with the Josh Scott from Flite Test, Memoirs of World War II, so many things. We are so excited to have you on. Josh, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
So we are, to give you a little bit of backstory, if you don't know who Josh is, Josh was a part of Flite Test for years and kind of the early phases of that. And then also he more currently runs Memoirs of World War II, which is a YouTube channel that has over 180,000 subscribers to date. Just to let you know, there are new episodes every month. It's a ton of work, a ton of editing, but it's totally worth it what he's doing. So make sure you guys subscribe, check that out as well. And today we're going to be talking about fundamentals of getting started on YouTube. How do you get to 180,000? How do you grow it? How do you let people know about it? So we're going to be talking about that, also his time on Flite Test. So Josh, before we jump into it too much, please promote anything you would like to share, websites or social media handles, all that.
Yeah, absolutely. You can follow us on Facebook, Memoirs of World War II, on Instagram, Memoirs of World War II, and then our website is Memoirs of World War II. But the World War II is always spelled WWII, the more traditional abbreviation of it. Memoirsofworldwar2.com is our website. And then obviously our YouTube channel is where all of our content sits. We release a new episode every month. And each time it's telling the personal story of a veteran of the Second World War, their personal experience. And they're just short documentaries. Each one is about 10 to 15 minutes long. And it's just cool. It's something that I felt the length of would be, it's a good shareable length. It's reasonable that anyone, not just history buffs, would be interested in sitting down and watching a 12-minute video to hear this person who is in their mid-90s or maybe even older talk about one of the most significant moments in history that happened 75 plus years ago. I've seen a lot of documentaries, obviously we all have, about World War II, and a lot of times they are built around an event with several people speaking segments into it. So I kind of thought, what if I did the flip side of that and focused on an individual got their perspective of everything that was going on. There was a concern early on that we would run out of steam, because how many times can you talk about the Battle of the Bulge, or how many times can you talk about the Battle of Iwo Jima? But I quickly found out that you can talk about the same event a million times from different perspectives, because the perspective is always going to be different. And the way that it affected the individual is always going to play out differently. So
that's super cool.
Yeah, so that's what we do.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, so guys, make sure you check it out. Like, it totally puts you there with the music and sound effects and all these other things. Like, it's so much work. I'm relatively new to YouTube, and it is a lot of work, but it's so fun, and it's totally worth it. So.
Yeah, I should say too that this is all part of a mission. My wife and I set out to do a couple years ago to preserve the history of World War II from the people that were there that were losing so quickly. But having said that, we are actively going out and interviewing these veterans, and on our website, we have a form where you can go and fill out information about a veteran that a World War II veteran that you would like to see featured on our channel. So we're getting contacted from people from all over the country, but also all over the world to come and record these interviews. So that's what we're constantly working on, is getting as many of these interviews filmed as we can before it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely. So cool. And you guys have made so many trips, like all over the nation, stuff like that. And it seems like you have a great base too for Patreon. It seems like there's people really showing up to help support and
and that's been we have people that contribute in other ways as well. We have T-shirts available on our website. You can make a donation on our website, but Patreon has been a huge help. Just people who really got behind the vision. And support us every month through Patreon and whatever dollar amount they want. But yeah, it has enabled us to take these trips and be able to go to other parts of the country to get these stories.
That's so cool. Well, as we shift gears here today, I'd love to kind of hear your backstory and Flite Test and hear the other side. So we did an interview with Michael Caminetti a few weeks back, and he mentioned it. He was kind of one of the people that helped get things started and finding people for camera and on camera and stuff like that. And so your name came up. We actually featured you in the episode as well. And so I would just love to hear kind of like how on earth did you get to there and how it all started.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the guy who started Flite Test, Chad Capper, he's actually my cousin.
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah, so he's been a film and like TV producer for a long time. And he got into the RC hobby, and soon after he decided that he wanted to make a YouTube series that was built around having fun in the RC hobby, but also getting people educated and involved in the hobby, because he found out pretty early on that at the time it wasn't the most welcoming community.
Really?
And so it was hard. Yeah, it was hard for him to find people to fly with that would take him under his wing, no pun intended, and really kind of help him get over the hump of learning to fly, so that you can buy a plane and fly it successfully without crashing it and losing your investment.
Yeah.
So he decided to make a YouTube channel that would do just that. It would be a help to people who are just getting into the hobby. It would connect people with others who are already in the hobby, and just kind of take the whole hobby and just elevate it to another level. So he wanted to do this this YouTube series, and I think Michael was the first person that he brought on to do it. Michael's obviously extremely talented.
Yeah.
Cinematographer, director, all that kind of stuff. And it was Michael who, he and I are childhood friends. So Chad was looking for like the hosts for the show. And they had a guy in mind who knew a lot about the RC hobby. He'd been doing it for years and years and years, Josh Bixler. Mm-hmm. And they're like, Chad wanted to have the opposite, the antithesis of that, in the form of someone who knew absolutely nothing about the hobby, that could kind of speak for that guy who is just getting into the hobby, but he's intimidated to ask dumb questions.
Yeah.
And so Chad said, we need someone who can do that and kind of play it in a funny way, genuine, but still like bring some humor to it.
Sure.
And it was actually Michael who was like, what about your cousin Josh? He does. He plays dumb all the time, and a lot of times is not even playing. But with both Chad and Michael, I've done plenty of work in the past on video work where I got to do some element of comedy, and so they thought that it would be a good fit, and they brought me in for the first episode, and I literally came into that situation with no knowledge whatsoever. I did not know anything about planes, let alone RC planes. Nothing about it. So every single episode was a new discovery for me.
That's so
and
cool.
that's really what Chad wanted from the beginning. So yeah, it's and it just it was just this interesting thing that we started doing, and I'm like, I've never been a part of anything like this before. I'm surrounded by great people. Not only is Chad a relative of mine, but he's one of my good friends, and Michael has been a good friend for years. And then Josh Bixler, I mean, he is just like the nicest guy in the world. Wow. And we people always talk about the chemistry that Josh and I had in the show, and sometimes I'm like, I agree, but sometimes I'm like, I feel like it's kind of a one-sided thing, because Josh is just so warm and friendly and welcoming. Like, I feel like he could have good chemistry with anybody,
That's so cool.
But I love him. He's such a great guy. And so yeah, that's kind of where it was. And so it quickly, we got picked up by a sponsor, and we're able to do more. I think we started in October of 2010, and by January or February of 2011, we had our first sponsored trip out to California, where we got to go shoot on location out there and do some episodes. So yeah, and from there it just kept growing and growing.
Michael was talking about like you guys would do like a bunch of goofy videos when you were kids and stuff. Was that more for like youth group and things like that, or was it just like you guys enjoyed?
No,
skits and sketches and stuff? Or?
Yeah, Michael and I, they're goofy videos, but for the most part, the ones that I remember, they weren't intentionally goofy. We wanted to make like action movies and things like that.
Is there any of this on YouTube or anywhere? Do you have any access to this stuff? This would be incredible.
Here's the thing, Matt.
To show right now as you're talking about it and just like director's commentary.
No, absolutely not. But Michael's parents, they threaten me with these home videos that they still have that Michael and I made all the time. Threaten's a strong word, but it's a little bit, it's how I feel sometimes because just the nature of what's recorded in those videos would be humiliating, I guess, if it ever got out. No, I mean, if you can imagine, I'm saying that in jest mostly, but if you can imagine, two 11, 12, 13-year-old boys that are, trying to make like the next Die Hard, it's it's so pretty funny.
Yeah, it'll be something to work towards one day. One day we'll get the footage.
Yeah,
you mentioned it. I'm like, I would love to go to just B-roll of that. No, that's awesome. Yeah, so when you guys got into Flite Test and things like that, did you know it would get as big as it was, or was it kind of like, this is fun, or because it seemed like you guys had pretty fast success,
Yeah, absolutely. No, we didn't know that, but the thing that stood out on the surface was the production value, which Michael, I mean, he can't do anything without it being, just aesthetically amazing, you know. And so that really helped us get our foot in the door and really start to get noticed. But just with pretty much anything, my belief is that, good production value, whether it's music or if it's, a video series or a movie or, whatever, good production value will catch people's attention. But what keeps people's attention and what causes growth is what's behind that great production value. And so Flite Test, I feel like, really had more than just it looked good and we did cool stuff, but there's a genuine care for people as individuals and putting a community together. And even with with me coming into this world of Flite Test without previously being connected to the hobby, I was connected to the vision because it was all about, bridging gaps and again, bringing people together. And, we always tried to be as genuine as we can. I say tried to be because I think everybody, can fall into the pitfall when you're creating content for, for a mass audience of kind of trying to give people what they want. But for the most part, I think that Flite Test has stayed true to its values, which is to educate, to entertain, and to elevate the world of RC flight. So that's kind of the thing that they had going from the very beginning, and I think that's what's made this lasting longevity and what made it catch on so quickly.
That's so cool. Yeah, I didn't know that kind of the why behind the what with your cousin Chad getting started. Like there's this stigma and like it's tough to get into and it wasn't really welcoming. And that's what I think about when I think about Flite Test is just like there's this community. One of the more recent videos I saw was the guy that took 4 box fans and put them together and then made a drone, and it was just so ridiculous. And there's just people all around laughing and they're cheering. Like I think we can get like, okay, back to the drawing board, and just that maker kind of test, is so interesting and fun to watch.
And a lot of it is the community of people that watch. Flite Test has always been really inclusive with the people that watch, from all the way from like giving shout outs to people to, actually trying out people's designs. This design was sent to us by so-and-so and we're gonna build this and we're gonna fly it. And so then even sometimes bringing those people on the show, so it's always been very community driven, and they have on their website, they and then Facebook, they have all these online communities where people are now helping each other out, and it's not always, you know, people going to Flite Test to ask the questions. People will go to this, you know, Flite Test community and say, hey, you know, I'm having trouble with my ESC, or I'm having trouble with this, you know, prop or whatever, and they get all this helpful feedback, you know. So it's really turned into a community that Flite Test just kind of facilitates, but like it's really the community that's making it happen.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's fun. People are can be amazing or not amazing at times, but it's just nice when people get along and everybody's like rallied around the same hobby or skill or cause, which is really cool to see. That's awesome, man. Well, I would love to talk more about kind of how you got into, you know, Memoirs of World War II, and then also just the fundamentals. We were talking about fundamentals of getting started on YouTube. So currently today, I am I think I have 81 subscribers, and
nice.
You know, so we're trending that way. And thank you also for sharing our video, our drone crash video. I went to bed one night, and I'm so new to YouTube, but I went to bed one night. I had like 266 views because I check it incessantly because I'm new to YouTube and I'm a narcissist. And like the next day, it was like, I don't know, like 1,000 views. And I was like, what the heck? And so then I didn't know that you sent a text to the team and let them know about it. So that was cool. And then they featured on the Facebook page. I'm like, oh man, that's so I can attest to the community and the welcomeness and being included for that, what I was doing. So I really appreciate that. But yeah.
Well, I think what you did, the video that you made was like right in step with Flite Test, you know, because you led with the, you know, sort of very human element of I crashed my drone and this is devastating, you know. Instead of trying to, there's plenty of videos out there where people are, you know, demonstrating their skills, which is great, you know.
Sure.
But for somebody that can lead with like I messed up and it was rough, you know, and then find the humor in it too, you know. I think that's what was so great about your video.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Yeah, it was. I just remember when I was pulling it out of the river, I'm like, I have to somehow salvage something from this. So my son, who's 17, I was like, can you film me like in the river? And at the time I was just in like jeans, American Eagle jeans, I think, and sandals, just these old sandals and stuff. And it had been in the water for 20 minutes. And so I'm like, just get some footage of me pulling this thing out of the water and maybe we can make something dumb out of it. So
the shift in tone in the last, you know,
the twist,
like the last quarter of it. I love that. It's great.
M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah. So
right.
We're expecting it. So it, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's fun. So I don't take myself too seriously and I want to find the balance, and that's the thing too, kind of getting into this as we turn, change gears here. That's the thing. 'Cause you know, your mission is so vital and so amazing, helping these veterans and celebrating their stories while they're with us. I would never want to lessen that or cheapen that by like, so tell me about it, you know, like what's the down low, you know, should I have a veteran on my channel? All these dumb things. So we never would want to cheapen that, but we are interested, you know, and that's one of the things that we provide at Matt Drones On is just how to grow your YouTube channel. So
yeah,
any and everything you think would be helpful, we would love to hear it. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's funny, when we first started developing, so like you said, we started going out and interviewing veterans just to do it, and back in 2016 we started an Instagram account because I was doing it enough that I'm like, oh, I should, you know, start sharing these somewhere. And then a couple of years later it developed into the YouTube series. A friend of mine approached me, actually, Christian McLean. He worked for Flite Test. He was one of their videographers for a while.
Oh, cool.
And one day we were at a Flite Test shoot and he came to me and he's like, hey, what do you think about me coming along to one of your World War II interviews sometime and filming it and just see, you know, what we could do with it, you know? And so that's kind of how the series started, you know? But it's funny because when we first started the series, we wanted to see, like, you know, how do we get this in front of people? You know, how do we grow this channel so that people can hear these stories?
Right.
And we would come across a lot of content that was directed towards helping people grow their YouTube channels. And it was interesting because the first step was always think about what kind of content you want to create. And for us, we were kind of like, wait, what? Like, and it kind of dawned on me that we're living in an age where, you know, there's such a thing as being YouTube famous. And technically speaking, you don't need a lot of equipment, budget, anything like that to accomplish that. And so I'm like, okay, it's interesting to me that there's so many that's how they would start with step one. And I'm not saying it's wrong of them to do that,
right?
But it kind of shined a light on like where we are like as a culture, that the notion of wanting to have a successful YouTube channel would come before even knowing what you wanted that channel to be about.
Yeah.
So my encouragement would be kind of the opposite. Like if you're passionate about something and you want to express this for whatever reason, or get this in front of people or help people or whatever, then the next step is like, is this applicable to YouTube? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, I think YouTube is a tool. In my opinion, YouTube should be a tool to get the thing that you're passionate about out there to people, rather than the other way around, where it's like, oh, I want to make a YouTube channel. What should I make it about? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So because that passion will really be the thing that guides you through the whole process, through the ups and downs, because there will be ups and downs. One of the most horrible traps that I think YouTubers fall into, and we definitely did, was when you reach a certain level of success. My video got, X amount of views. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like we're on our way,
Right.
And then you'll find out that maybe the next video or a few videos down the road, it doesn't get as many views, and maybe the next one gets even less views, and the next one gets even and you're like, oh no, what's happening?
Right.
The passion that you have for your content is going to be the thing that keeps you going beyond that. There's been plenty of times where, so I'll just be practical and real with you. Last summer, we reached quickly. We had a probably 5 to 6 month period where things just kept quickly increasing. And every video that we put out, within a week of it coming out, had over 200,000 views. So cool. This one here and that one there is like getting closer and closer to 1 million views. Our subscribers just tick going up and up and up, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And it was great. And then somewhere around July or August I think it was August of last year, everything leveled out. Wow. And the next video that we put out, it took more than a month to get over 100,000. And I know a lot of people might be watching this and saying like, oh, 100,000 videos. Oh, is that so bad? It's great. And I'm not sure. knocking it at all. But what I'm saying is that when we had reached a certain level, everything that was lower than that, you have a natural reaction to be like, what's wrong? What's happening? Oh no, we're like, we're descending, and so that's the monster. And I can't tell you all that, the science behind algorithms, because that's something that I'm still learning. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that like we're not going to allow algorithms to determine our content.
Yeah, that's good.
To an extent, there's certain variables that surround the content that can be tweaked. Okay, if we, let's make a more engaging thumbnail so that it's more interesting, or what kind of verbiage should we be using in the title of our video? Those things are fine, but we're not going to change the core of our content and what it stands for and what the purpose of it is to get more views. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So anyway, the passion that you have for the content that you're making will propel you through all of those times.
So good.
There's been plenty of times where I'm like, man, this takes a lot of my time, a lot of my effort that I could be putting, towards other things. And I have a family and everything like that. Mm-hmm. My family gets plenty of my time. I'm not saying that I ever put this above them, sure. But when our last video had, 500,000 views, and this one has been released 4 weeks ago, and it's got 24,000 views. It's like, what's going on? Like, I put so much time and energy into this, people, how come I'm not getting as many views as the last one did? Right. There's been so many times where that's happened, and I had to step back and say, hang on a second, man. 4 or 5 years ago, you had this dream that you wanted to get out and talk to the last living World War II veterans any way you could. And it was a distant dream for you to sit down with somebody who could say, I was there, here's what happened, all that stuff. And I sit back and I say, oh my gosh, I have been able to do that and so much more.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that keeps it all in perspective, So views happen, they spike, they level off, subscriptions spike and they level off. But the main reason for why you're doing what you're doing is going to keep you, is the thing that's going to keep you going, because just like any other material thing, we always crave more. And
Absolutely.
what was good enough for us yesterday isn't going to be good enough for us tomorrow, unfortunately. That's just like how we're wired as people. So if you're chasing views, you're going to be chasing them till the day you die, and you're not going to be satisfied.
Yeah.
But it's all about the content, the nature of the content, and what it means to you and what it stands for. That's the fulfilling side of it.
Yeah,
so when I put out a video, and 50,000, 100,000 people watch it in the first week, and then I take the DVD over to the veteran's house, and he cries, and he looks at me and he says, I remember that. This is just like, this brings me back. That interaction with that one individual, I love all of the people that watch, and I'm so thankful. But that interaction with that one individual tops the thousands of views any day.
That is so cool. I've been doing our business podcast on Trinito for a little over 4 years, and then we had another podcast for about 2.5 years. And totally identify with what you're saying, because it's like you said earlier, if you're just like, well, I want to be YouTube famous, I want to be famous. Okay, so let's create an idea, but you're getting the cart before the horse, like you were saying.
Yeah.
I really love to help people. Like, one, I love droning, and like I'm a 7 on the Enneagram for Enneagram fans and things like that. And so for me, and if you're a 7 or understand 7s, not you, Josh, I don't think you're a 7, but people watching. Sevens get really excited about new things, like shiny new things. And so sometimes 7s can start things and not finish them or not stick to them. But then I have my 6 wing that helps me, that's the loyalty, kind of being loyal, and worst case scenario thinking. So I can judge based on my intensity of something, how like white hot burning it is, that it'll last me however long. For example, I loved hockey for like 2 weeks. I was like really into hockey when I was like 14. And it was Wayne Gretzky, and I got a hockey puck from Canada, and it was like this big thing. And then I was like, I don't like hockey anymore. Like, it was like 2 weeks. It was short-lived. So when I think about Trinito and businesses, income streams, side hustles, helping people make the jump from the 9 to 5, it's so fun to help people that regardless of if we're getting plays or shares or views or if anybody hears it, I'm still going, because it feels like a life mission versus like a hobby. It feels like this is like one of the reasons I'm on the earth, is to help share these stories or help people, get further. So that's such a great point to keep things going, because not that you have to stick to everything you've ever started. That doesn't mean you're a quitter. It's just, there's a few things that are like, okay, this is one of my reasons I'm on the earth.
Yeah. And like I said, there's always like the trappings that surround it that can always be tweaked and figure out, what can we do better? Yep. And then also we change as people too, mm-hmm. So our passions oftentimes change as well. So
that's so good. Yeah. I never thought I would be into droning or drones or anything like that. I didn't know anything about them. I was like, yeah, I think they're cool. But now I can't watch a TV show or movie. I'm like, drone shot. Like, it's the joke in the family. Somebody will like, Dad, drone shot. I'm like, yeah, that's sweet. Okay. Yeah. How'd they do that? So it's just fun, and like just allowing yourself to, at whatever age, like, I like this, and I don't really have to explain why I like it. I just think it's awesome, and I want to talk about it and share and learn about it. So yeah, that's totally fine. Go for it. So what are some other things, Josh, that you've seen as well, as far as just kind of growing, talking about consistency, kind of the why behind the what, essentially?
Yeah. Consistency is pretty big. As consistent as you can be. Again, and I preface all of these things with saying that I don't know everything, but I can just say like what I feel has gotten us to the point that we're at right now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we established a goal of doing 1 episode a month, and with my full-time work schedule and my family and everything, we kind of settled on that as being realistic. We feel like we could do an episode a month. And then, there's practical things that you can do, such as everything that surrounds the video. Thumbnails are big. So when I'm finishing up an episode, I'll go in and design a thumbnail, something that draws people in. A lot of times you'll see on thumbnails of videos like a phrase or something that's real catchy. Yeah. I personally try to never be clickbait. Yep. So whether it's the title of the video or whatever the text is in the thumbnail, I want to make sure that if people are coming because of that they're going to get what they came for, kind of thing,
Right.
So with us, I think a lot of people like to see, it's really effective to see the veteran as they are now, in their 90s, next to a picture of them when they were in the service.
That's so cool.
I think that just seeing that side by side is always really engaging. So it's going to look different for everybody, but imagery, the design of the thumbnail, what it says, some kind of phrase that draws people in, that's always a huge help. So it's going to look different, depending on what your content is. But my advice would be to make it as attention grabbing as you can, but still truthful to what the content is. You don't want to get labeled as somebody who just does clickbait. So.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's super interesting. I was learning that too, just from thumbnails and things like that. I'm just like, I'll just YouTube has 3 preloaded thumbnails. I'll just use one of those, and there's no text or anything like that. And it's just like me standing out in the field or whatever. I'm like, this doesn't look that interesting, And so there's been interesting things. I've been using Canva, and this isn't a plug for them. They're not paying us anything. But Canva has actually been really cool to create thumbnails on, like through my laptop and stuff like that. And even my phone. My son has a Fortnite channel, and we've been learning together, which has actually been fun, from the human side of it. We have a 17 and a 14-year-old. And of course, YouTube is important to them. It's a part of their daily routine in a sense of learning and content and entertainment. And so it's been fun to learn, me being 40 and them being younger. Like, okay, so it's been fun to help each other out, and I take those bonding moments when I can get them. It's been fun.
Right.
So Josh, we're talking about, the importance of thumbnails. We're talking about consistency, the why behind the what. Has there ever been a time maybe when in your journey where you've been discouraged and you're like, is anybody watching this stuff? Is anybody listening? And I know it matters. It's important to the world. It's important to the veterans. It's important to you for sure. But I know discouragement is a big thing in anything that we do in life and staying, encouraged. But has there been a time where you're like, you know what, maybe I should just stop because this is taking way too much time, or, things like that?
Yeah, there has been times like that for me, for sure. And it can come in the form of, like we talked about before, this video isn't getting as many views as I hoped it would. It can come in the form of a comment. The internet can be such a nasty place because we all sit behind the comfort of our phones or our computer screens where we don't have to confront anybody face to face, so people can say whatever they want to say. And so, there's definitely been times where it's been like, man, I don't think I can do this anymore. And I've told my wife a few times, sometimes I just want to be a dad, I just want to just be a guy. I just want to go to work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, come home to you and the kids and just be a dad, and that would be fulfilling. And she always comes back and says, that you would not be satisfied. She's like, I would support you 100% if you just wanted to do that, just work and come home and be a family guy. She's like, but that you would not be happy and you wouldn't be satisfied. So I had to, I think that it's going to be different for all of us, but we have to find, what are those little triggers that motivate us? Yeah. And what are the triggers that deplete our motivation? So practically speaking, one of the things that I had to do was I had to, like I said, I think I mentioned before that my wife and I are really kind of spearheading this whole thing together. And so we both have our own separate roles in the Memoirs of World War II team. One of her roles pretty early on in the process, once we started to really garner some attention and get a lot of views and comments, was I put her in charge of the comments on YouTube, because there was just sometimes where we would get some just nasty comments that would affect me in a way that I'm like, well, you know what, this is already, maintaining this project is already like, it's pretty hard work, you know, it takes a lot of time and energy. Like I can't be distracted by these things that make me think, oh, maybe I'm not doing such a great job, or, you know, why am I doing this? Yeah. So, she has a very pleasant, you know, optimistic nature about her. And, you know, so I was like, hey, you'd be great to, like, you know, go through this, because it's important, you know, for any YouTuber to maintain a connection with their audience, with their community. So I don't just want to ignore the comments. So I'm like, hey, if you can oversee the comments, let me know if there's things that I need to address. Let me know if there's feedback that we get that it would be good for us to implement. Because that's another thing too, is listening to your audience and seeing, you know, without changing who you are, what can be adjusted, what are things that you can do better. But also, you know, I wanted her to kind of take that on, so that wouldn't be an extra weight on me and that's really hurt the productivity. So what are things that you need to do? What are the things that trigger motivation in you? A lot of times, for me, it might be watching a World War II movie. Band of Brothers is a great series that I absolutely love, and all I have to do is hear the theme music to it, and I want to run to my office and start editing the next episode. Cool. And then what are the things that kind of kill your motivation? Because I think in anything in life that we do that's worthwhile, there are going to be roadblocks, and there are going to be things, hurdles that can potentially trip us up and kind of destroy our motivation to accomplish those things. And so we have to figure out what do we do when we come across those, and how do we work around them.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, just to stay encouraged is so huge, and because what you're doing is important. And I think that's the big thing with our culture now, is like, just because you haven't been discovered, or people haven't seen your work or know your personality, maybe on a personal level or whatever, doesn't mean that you're not good at that, or that you don't have skill in that area. I think, like, if we don't get all these likes and all these thumbs up and all these shares, then that means our work is garbage. And it's like, no, I just don't think you've been, I don't like the word, but discovered in a sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And allowing people to process you, you know, like I like humor and wit, and I like jokes and comedy, things like that too. But like, I would find myself getting almost upset with people that just met me, and like, I'm coming in like with a joke or something, and I'm like, you need to give them time to process you and figure out, oh, okay, I didn't know you were this way or that way, or oh, you're interested in that. I think sometimes we can be so passionate about a topic or whatever it may be, that when people aren't at the same level of intensity or just appreciation, we're like, oh, okay, well, no, this is maybe I'm not funny, or maybe this isn't good, or maybe my content's not worth watching or listening to. So, which isn't the truth at all at times. Yeah.
And, you know, I think we undervalue the impact that we have on individuals. It's so easy for us to want to have an impact on the world and as many people as possible. But I kind of feel like the more people you have an effect on, the more the individual effect the effect that's having on the individual is diluted a little bit. If you look at that from the flip side, like maybe put yourself in the seat of the viewer or the person who is taking in the content. You know, at the end of my life, let's see, who's somebody that I admire, that I look up to. I don't know. When I was a kid, I loved Harrison Ford. He was my favorite actor, you know, obviously for Star Wars and Indiana Jones, things like that I grew up on. You know, at the end of my life, I'm not going to be thinking about the famous people that had a big effect on me and a million other people in the world. Wow. I'm gonna be thinking about the individuals who I had a personal connection with, and they will have had the biggest impact on my life. So
that's awesome.
You can, you know, it's great to have all the views, to have, you know, throngs of people that are watching your content, but don't value numbers over the individual impact that you're having on somebody. Yeah. And so again, you know, going back to when I get to watch, and I don't get to do it often, obviously, I only get to watch the finished episodes that we do with the veteran when it's ones that live, in the vicinity where we live. I don't travel back to California to watch the video with a guy that I interviewed in California. Right. But when I get to have that one-on-one with them, that just means so much. And then when I have a conversation with an individual who says, man, the work that you do inspired me to go out, and now I'm going out in my community and I'm talking to veterans and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff is just worth so much more. It has got so much more weight to it than 1,000 views. Wow. 1,000 views,
Yeah.
So really, it's more about, to me anyway, it's more about what's the impact that I'm making on individuals, mm-hmm. rather than what's the impact I'm making on masses of people.
Wow. That's so good. I've honestly never heard that before. That's really good. It makes sense though, because I'm like, yeah, I'm not worried about, Harrison Ford at the end of my life, or someone who's,
most random
famous.
Thing. I just realized that I'm like, do I not have any heroes right now?
Well, when you have actors who are very talented, and actresses for sure, but then you meet someone who was in World War II fighting for freedom, fighting against the largest enemy we've ever seen. Just the Nazis and Hitler was such a good enemy. Just they don't make enemies like that anymore.
Yeah.
And it's incredible how evil and terrible that whole thing was. But
yeah, for sure. And that's the cool thing that really draws me to, I'm not drawn to war, and mm-hmm. And that kind of thing. And people point out a lot of the there were some not so great things that the United States did during the war as well, mm-hmm. But I'm not interested in promoting. How do I say this? What I'm interested in is the story of the individuals, mm-hmm. who gave of themselves selflessly, and they were in the thick of it, and they saw their friends died. They might have gotten injured or captured or whatever, mm-hmm. But they weren't superheroes. They were normal people, And so those are kind of who my heroes are right now.
Yeah,
I guess.
Which is and I think it helps you of all people focus on what a true hero is, the definition of a hero. We think it's the Avengers movies, or it's Iron Man, or we're like,
right,
this is not even close.
And again, it kind of mirrors what we're talking about, is that the people that have the greatest impact on us, if we really step back and think about it, are the people that are affecting a handful of people. They're affecting the ones that are surround their circle.
Mm-hmm.
If you can have an influence on the people where you are, mm-hmm. then you'll have lived a successful life.
Yeah. So good, man. I could talk for 2 more hours with you, Josh. This has been so good. And I do appreciate your time, but we have to come to a close here. Before we go though, I would just love to touch on a couple things. Maybe a final closing thought, or maybe something that came up in the interview, or something that's just been on your mind lately. It can be, YouTube related or just life related, because this is super touching and thoughtful, which is great. I've been loving the content. It's so much more than just YouTube and growing viewers. It's there's this reason for why it is and the passion behind it. And you can see that coming through your work, and then even in the interview. So I appreciate that. But any kind of closing thought or anything, that's on your mind lately with, your channel or life and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, don't allow yourself to be pressured into, creating content, whether it's, at a certain level of consistency, or, this is what the people want. I might be beating a dead horse saying it over and over again, but be true to who you are and what you want to create, and don't allow the pressure of, algorithms or view counts or anything like that to dictate, when you make content and how you make content, and why, especially why you make content. Because, man, there's nothing like starting out with something that you're passionate about, that you're doing because you love to do it, and then all of a sudden you feel this responsibility to the people that are watching. There's one thing when you tweak what you're doing because you respect the people that you're watching. It's another thing when you fear them, when you're afraid that if I don't do this, they're going to stop watching, and then I won't have, I'll lose subscribers and all that stuff.
Wow.
That takes the joy out of it. So if you're not having fun, then what's the point,
Yeah. Totally.
And I did, this past winter, I took a step back for multiple reasons. It was the holidays, and I knew that like I work full time at a church, and so obviously in the holiday season, like it's going to get busy at work. I have a wife and 2 kids, and so I took a step back for the months of December and January this past year from releasing any new videos to be able to spend ample time with my family and to be able to get back on a schedule where I'm not literally working like month to month to month, because like I said, our goal is to release 1 video a month. And for a time, that's what I was doing. I was just, trying to get that monthly video done and just barely making it there. I wanted to step back and give myself some time to breathe and time to find the joy again in doing what I was doing. And if I need to do that every year, then I'll do it because it was worth it. I loved being able to breathe and like spend time with my family, where I wasn't like, my mind wasn't like, okay, as soon as I'm done playing this game with the kids, I got to jump on my computer and edit the next blah, 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 blah. Yeah. It wasn't like that. And I was able to just like kind of reset and find the joy again in what I was doing. So don't allow, fear of, what if I don't do this, will we lose subscribers, blah, blah, blah. Don't allow that to dictate your content, because then you're making it out of fear, and you're not making it for the reason that you started making it in the first place.
Wow. That's awesome. That's super helpful, man. Well, that's been great stuff. Well, before we close, once again, if you could just promote a way where we can find out more, and we'll put all this in the show notes as well.
Yep, Memoirs of World War II. We're on YouTube. That's where most of our content is sitting. You can also follow us on Instagram. Everything is Memoirs of WWII, and our website is memoirsofworldwar2.com, and you can go there, and we have, like I said before, we have t-shirts for sale. You can watch our videos from there. You can join us on Patreon if you're interested in linking up with us and helping us out with our mission. If you know of a World War II veteran that you think would be good for our series, we have a form on there that you can fill out, and that will assist us in setting up a possible interview with them. So, Memoirs of World War II.
Perfect. Well, hey, Josh, this has been super fun to learn. I've learned a lot today. I've taken notes, and I know our audience has as well. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you, man.